Welcome back, horror fans, to the Week in Horror, February 16th through February 22nd. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Alex and Eugene.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, everybody?
Awesome. Man, we are almost through with the dump season. Heading into March. Coming up there. But
I know.
And March is going to be fun because we've got stuff like Leprechaun coming out and
the Ides of March.
Other fun as we inch towards the summer. So, but this has been good. I think this has been a good past couple of months.
Hey, I mean, we've covered some pretty cool stuff.
It really has. We've talked about some good ones.
Shit, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm super excited about our After Dark coming up this month with director Billy Pond. So, I'm super excited.
Oh man. I've loved chatting with him. He's going to be such a great guest coming on.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, his vision in his movies, the way he works it, Circus of the Dead, Cowboys from Hell, Doll Boy, all great shit. And the dude just has a cool ass look about him, and I just think he's going to be a lot of fun to have on.
Oh, absolutely. And he likes to travel around doing different kinds of like horror cons and all this other kind of stuff. So he's like, hey, you see me, come up, greet me, say hi to me, all this other kind of stuff. Visit him at the booth. So I mean, he's gonna be awesome to talk to, and we're really lucky that we're able to get him.
Hell yeah! All right, so I got to clue you guys in. So because I handle the social media. So I handled the social media for Week in Horror, and
you do a great job at it, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I got into this kind of back and forth on Twitter about two movies, and we had to turn it into a double feature. So the two movies I'm talking about, this is so fucking great. It was a double feature dino horror. Tammy and the T-Rex and the Velocipaster. So okay. I sat down. I had to watch these things, and I'm not going to give a rundown like this because people out there can watch it themselves. Just listen to the titles. You'll get an idea of what the films are about for any of our listeners. But I will say this about Tammy and the T-Rex. I understand why Denise and Paul probably didn't want that movie released until now.
There's a very good reason. Have you seen it?
And
Paul Walker did not want it till now.
Exactly. Oh my god. Contractually, it's a post-mortem release. I'm gonna get so much hate for dogging on Paul Walker.
Yeah, I know. That's it.
Anyway, and the Velocipaster. Actually, I mean, come on. It's a
pastor
that
can turn into a velociraptor that fights ninjas. Like...
It isn't. Infected by like this ancient Chinese curse from this Velociraptor claw, and now whenever he gets mad, he Velociraptors out. He hulks out. He Velociraptors out.
Velociraptor?
And then uses his newfound powers to fight crime. So he fights like drug dealing ninjas and shit. Yes, ninjas. Surprisingly, I have to say, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, it was bad, but not as bad. It wasn't. It was not bad, but it had some decent moments. Is it a fall out of your seat funny comedy? No. Did it have its moments? Absolutely. Do you get to watch a dinosaur fight a bunch of fucking ninjas? Who, I mean, this is the most out of shape looking ninjas I've ever seen in my life. But
Beverly Hills ninjas.
Yes. Yeah, it was absolutely entertaining. What about? I know it's the first time you guys watched it. What did you guys think?
See, I have a biased opinion because I love really bad movies.
I was just talking to my fiance about that.
Like me. Oh yeah, I mean me and my friends, like, we had a bad movie night. We were fans of Mystery Science Theater. Like, I saw Tammy and the T-Rex probably like 8 years ago. Like, kind of thing. And, Velocipaster came out only recently. So, like, I love these movies, but that's because, like, I go hunting for, like, the bad of the bad. Like, people are like, oh, man, have you seen The Room? I was like, man, I saw The Room, like, when it came out. Like, that's, like, nothing new. Man, I like Birdemic, too.
Man, fucking Eugene's over here like, baby, I've got our night planned. Monos, the hands of fate.
One of my favorite. Torgo is one of my favorite characters, by the way, too.
Torgo.
It looks like he needs groping lessons.
You mentioned MST3K. I have to. I watched that episode too, and it was like with the giant hands. Like I wish those big hands would just push him over. But fuck.
Butt fuck.
Alex, what? I said butt fuck. Holy shit. Not intentional, but Alex, what did
it
you think
never usually is. I went into Velocipaster with like the idea of this is gonna be another Sharknado, but I was pleasantly fucking wrong. And these are the kinds of movies that you tell me about that I watch before I bring out to date night because I love my fiance and she's got a very high tolerance for stupid movies, but some of these I think might kill her. Tammy the T-Rex with...
That's like,
I know,
like the
it's
testing
like,
ground.
I'm going to pre-screen these. Oh, Jared gave me this. Let me pre-screen it. No, but Tammy and the T-Rex was fun to watch. I thought Velocipaster, just the whole concept of the Chinese... Oh, you got the what was it? The powder, the poison...
Yes.
Oh my god. It was great. It was definitely worth, like, if you've got some fucking time to kill, definitely.
Well, that was Velocipaster actually has a decent story behind it because the director Brennan Steer.
What a name.
Yes.
I know.
Basically, he was in film school, and I think he was going to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and the idea came to him. Okay, the story behind it is hysterical. The idea came to him when he was in the middle of a text message, and he tried to text, and he was texting the word Velociraptor to a friend. Okay, and his phone autocorrected it to Veloci space Pastor.
And then he was like, "Well, fuck, gotta make that into a movie."
Exactly. So as a class project, he made a short film that was a collection of fake Grindhouse trailers, which included the Velocipaster.
Oh god, I gotta see that trailer.
Okay,
now.
So he uploaded it to YouTube, and it was his most successful YouTube video to date. And it got like at the time it got like 45,000 views, and this was back in 2010. And so he gets like 45,000 views and thinks this could be a great movie. So he goes out there and he tried to Kickstarter it and it failed. Then he tried to seed and spark it and that failed. And then so his mom's friend privately invested $35,000. That was the sole investor for the movie. $35,000 for him to shoot this movie. And this is what we got for $35,000. We got Velocipaster.
Hey, I mean,
and if Kung Fury is getting a fucking sequel. Velocipaster, there are studios and fucking like I don't know, what is it? The Asylum could fund this. Velocipaster is getting a fucking
Velocipaster.
sequel.
This shit's about to get holy.
But Tammy the T-Rex, I mean, fuck, dude. It's so
It's like
I laughed when that
so
fucking
many
lion.
things.
I laughed when that fucking lion jumped on Paul Walker.
The thing is, Denise Richards has this ex-boyfriend, right, who's a homicidal maniac, and they just gloss over it. Like he kills.
The dude is a
like,
fucking
Paul
lunatic.
Walker.
He's an absolute certifiable, lunatic.
Like complete over the top, who's certainly like heavily abusive. And that scene where he like kicks open the door to the like front door of Denise Richards' house and runs up the stairs, and the parents are like, "Hey, oh, I guess we just go back to cooking right now. I hope my daughter's okay."
These homicidal maniacs.
Fucking wild. Yes. So a lot of fun for any of our listeners who haven't seen it. We recommend it. Do a double feature. Do a double feature with the person you love. Tammy the T-Rex and the Velocipaster. Tammy the T-Rex, I believe, is available on YouTube, and the Velocipaster is available on Amazon Prime.
This is what you do, because this is what me and my friends do. You can put them both on, right? You can crack open a couple of beers and do it Mystery Science Theater 3000 style, where y'all crack jokes, right? And like yell stuff, and just have fun with both these movies. You will have a blast watching them.
Make a Valentine's night out of it.
Exactly. So you'll be single for the next year.
So you can watch stupid shit all year long.
Hats off to Denise Richards and Paul Walker. They gave their all. They really did. They acted. They did their jobs as actors. It wasn't like, it was kind of like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. You know, oh, it's a fucking dinosaur. Oh, like this. No, they put their best foot forward. I mean, the fucking movie was 1994 when this thing came out. Okay? They were both young. Their careers had not taken off yet. This is the kind of shit that you end up fucking doing. And, you know, they were professional. They gave it their... Everyone on that film knew what they were doing, and they did it professionally. I have to applaud them for that. No one was like, this is a bullshit movie. You fucking know that, right?
I mean, I think that was just generally...
Well, you know, Jurassic Park just came out, and they're kind
of... All right. So, yes, Dino Horror. Go check it out. They are absolutely hysterical. Super funny. You know, dinosaurs fighting ninjas. You just can't beat that shit. But, all right, let's kick off with the week. Alex, what do we got?
All right,
first?
we're going to start it off this week with Nightbreed. Came out February 16th, 1990. Man, that was a long time ago. 30 years now.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, man. Oh.
Why do you do that?
That's 30 years ago.
Every time.
Well, I wasn't even making a jab at your age, dude. I was just saying that was a long time ago.
I automatically assume that you are every time.
No, that scares me. I'm turning 30 this year. Anyways, this one was written and directed by Clive Barker, based off of his 1988 novella Cabal. This one had Craig Sheffer in it. Ann Bobby, David Cronenberg was in this one. Hugh Quarshire, I can never say his last name, played in this one as well. This is a movie about a young man named Aaron who is a mental patient, and he's led to believe by his doctor that he's a serial killer, and then goes to a cemetery, gets bit by this thing, tracked down by police. Everybody freaks out. He gets shot, but then he gets brought back to life and is brought into this world that he had been dreaming about called Midian, and meets up with like a tribe of these monsters that kind of take him in, and they kind of just hide from people. I guess really throughout the whole movie. It's an interesting one.
And don't forget, Doug Bradley was in that too.
Doug Bradley was in this too.
Yes, Pinhead himself. Not the character Pinhead, but Doug Bradley.
I mean, it might have made the movie a little better, but
yes, he was Loudsburg. He was the kind of head Nightbreed.
Yes.
So.
The head Nightbreed, who had a weird head.
Yes, he did. Yes, most of them
had
weird
pretty
heads.
Strange heads. That one with the big chin and the big pointy forehead, though, that was something.
I don't know why they made me think of Jay Leno when I saw it the first time.
Damn, son. Straight for the kill.
Not holding back today.
God. Oh, yeah, and I left out the whole part that there was like a serial killer killing people. It's kind of a big part of that whole thing.
And the serial killer was the
doctor.
Yeah,
he ended up... Well,
who was trying basically...
But yeah.
Do what?
What? Yeah, but then the doctor made him believe that it was him, and...
Yeah, that was the whole doctor.
Right.
There were multiple storylines that were kind of going on in it.
Definitely multiple things happening in that movie.
But I have to admit, that it's pretty. It kind of goes crazy. I mean, it goes into Clive Barker territory when Aaron Boone, the lead played by Craig Sheffer, when he gets to the cemetery and meets the Nightbreed, we start seeing the different varieties of Nightbreed and like that. That's when we really descended into kind of the craziness that Clive Barker is known for, and like that. But the insane variety of creatures that they made. I mean, again, the level of work that went into that.
Oh, absolutely. They actually had 2 months of playing around with ideas. The person in charge of it was Bob Keane. And so in terms of which sketch artists and all this other kind of stuff, they did it. Yeah, they worked on it for 2 months before even doing modeling work for it. So they were able to just to play around and throw ideas out there. Because, usually when you get tasked with something like this, you may have maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks or something like that. So when you get 2 months, you can really dive into it in terms of like the creatures and stuff like that. And they actually they brought on Ralph McQuarrie, who was a matte painter for Star Wars, the original trilogy.
Oh, that's right. He's doing the fucking those giant backdrops.
Yes.
He was doing the fucking.
So he does these giant matte backdrops for the film, and he was in charge of designing the history of the breed. Kind of thing. So they actually were able to create a whole history and lineage kind of thing for the breed and how they got to where they were and stuff like that today, or the time period where the film takes place in. On top of that, but one of the things that was kind of interesting about it was the fact that Clive Barker was contractually obligated to make it a rated R film, but it could not be as gory as Hellraiser.
Oh, that's fucking crazy.
And it's kind of like a weird thing, because usually a lot of times films won't reference like other films in a contract or something like that. But yeah, this was specifically, you could not make it as gory as Hellraiser.
Is there like a
kind of thing
guidebook on what was as gory as Hellraiser?
I don't know. I don't. Well, I don't know if they're like, okay, you can only show 17 gallons of blood or so many organs or something like. I don't know, but they just wanted to separate it from Hellraiser, but they still wanted the R rating.
Yeah, it was weird. There was a lot of trouble between Barker and the studio on that, this kind of storyline, the kind of story of what happened there is a perfect example of the disconnect between an author and the author's own work and the studio that's making it happen. Because, and you see it a number of times before, just the people who are not on the ground, who are not in the trenches, who are just kind of like looking at it from a logistics standpoint or from a marketing standpoint, and they just don't see the artistic endeavor that goes into it. Now, Clive Barker is a very, very complex, or is a man of very complex ideas, and his storylines typically are very, very rich and very, very detailed. And unfortunately, with a movie, you typically can't always get what you want. So you try to find that happy middle ground. I've run into that situation in the past, trying to find that happy middle ground between what's feasible and what your vision is. And the big huge issue was with Fox. And Fox, not only from Barker's standpoint, because Fox has never really commented on it, but from Barker's standpoint, the studio, number one, didn't understand what Cabal, the novella, they didn't understand what Cabal was about. They didn't get the essence of the story. And so Fox was basically looking for a horror film that was from Clive Barker. He was up and coming and he was hot. He was fresh off the heels of Hellraiser. He showed his chops, doing that film. And then they wanted to give him something new. And unfortunately, he went with Nightbreed. He went with Cabal, which was then changed to Nightbreed. And the story itself is so complex, and there's so much into it. There's multiple storylines that converge, and I know Clarker originally intended for the film to be like a fucking trilogy to kick off a whole 3-picture deal, and because Fox kind of screwed the pooch. We can't really say screw the pooch. Fox did what they needed to do as a studio. They marketed it as a kind of slasher film, and the whole, I guess, the nature of the concept of monsters and outsiders and outcasts not actually being monsters just because of the way they look, and then the relationship with the outside world and judgment and shit like that didn't come across. And so Barker was really, really pissed. And I think the original cut, when they took the theater test, they took the film to test screen, and in the original one, Decker, the doctor, his ending changed, or his ending, the original way that Fox wanted it to end, got really bad reception in test screenings. So then they allowed Barker to change it. He altered it. That got rave reviews at the test screening. And so it was like, okay, fantastic. We're in a good spot. So they gave him a bunch more money. They let him shoot a bunch more stuff. and just kind of like pick it up, and then they put the movie together, and then Morgan Creek, who was behind was the actual production company, and then Morgan Creek demanded that a bunch of shit be cut out. The guys who screened it for Morgan Creek couldn't even finish the screening. It was so disturbing to them. And so a bunch of like at one point the editor actually like quit in protest.
Damn.
Yeah, because they wanted to cut like I think like what was it 102 minutes out of it? No, it ended up being 102 minutes, but they ended up cutting out like freaking and like almost because Barker's original version ran for 2.5 hours, okay, and almost an hour was asked to be cut out of the film, which led Richard Martin, who was the editor on that, to just leave the project in protest. And then it was cut from 2 hours, and then it was cut down to 2 hours, and then again it was cut to 102 minutes. So a ton of shit got left out, okay, which really pissed Barker off. Because the whole idea, and then it was marketed terribly. They put more focus on the Doctor than they did on the Nightbreed. Nobody understood it. It was completely mishmash. Nobody was talking to each other. Barker himself is known to be rather mercurial, so he just wasn't working, with anybody. And then the movie came out, and it completely flopped. It tanked. Yeah, it absolutely tanked. It tanked commercially. It tanked critically, and that just kind of solidified Barker's distrust of production companies and studio shit. And so now if people want to adapt his stuff, he's like, pay me and go and do your own fucking thing. I'm not involved.
I don't want it.
Yeah, so he's done some stuff here and there, but it's not as heavily as he used to. But this whole mishegas has resulted in multiple cuts of the film. So you got the theatrical cut, which is 102 minutes long. Then you got the Cabal cut, which has that previous amount put back in, and it's slightly re-edited and cut in a slightly different way to kind of make more sense the way Barker intended. And that's the Cabal cut. And then you have then you have all the stuff all put back together, which is considered the director's cut, which was released by Scream Factory. So there's actually like 3 different versions of this movie.
See, I will never understand why studios pick up like intellectual property that they don't understand. Right, because they didn't understand it, and then they go and basically like sabotage it, because like even if it's like, okay, we invested in this film, at the very least carry out the original vision. If it flops, you fine, you can blame the director, but by like cutting an hour out of a film kind of thing, there's no way you can possibly believe that would make a film better.
Oh fuck no.
There's no Do you cut scenes out of movies? Absolutely. It happens all the time. Sometimes you film stuff, and then in editing, you're like, oh, I don't need this scene. That's why you'll have deleted scenes on your DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, kind of thing like that, right? And it's usually, maybe 3 or 4 scenes, and most of the time you can go, I understand why they cut that. Okay, I can understand that. But when you're talking about cutting an entire hour out of a 2-hour film.
2.5 deleted scenes consist of a whole other movie.
Yeah,
and that was the fucked.
You might as well have a part 1, part 2.
That's the fucked up shit, is because obviously this is 1990. The movie came when it was released. This is on VHS,
right?
Okay, there was no DVD, so when this movie was actually released on home video, it wasn't like there was going to be deleted scenes. It wasn't like you're going to have bonus features. This was simply a cassette tape, and it had the absolutely possibly worst version of the film, which was the theatrical cut.
You put the wrong shit on the wrong tape,
all of the
motherfuckers. You put the wrong shit on the wrong tape, motherfuckers.
And all of the focus is on the wrong shit. I've seen the theatrical version. All of the focus is on the wrong shit. There's way too much focus on the Doctor, and that's supposed to be a formidable a villain, and that's supposed to be like a tertiary villain as a part of a tertiary storyline.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like the main.
Because the primary storyline is the lead character. The primary storyline is, of course,
Aaron. Yeah.
And him becoming the prophesied Cabal. Okay? And then the secondary story is the Nightbreed themselves and their history, and how that all feeds into it, how Aaron and the prophecy feeds into that. And then the tertiary story is Decker and the shit he's doing is a serial killer. And you can even say that there is I don't know what the fourth version is, but there's even a fourth storyline going in there with the dude who wants, with that one cop who wants to get revenge. So there's a ton of shit going on, and you can't fit all that in a fucking 102 minutes. What is that bullshit?
No, you can't, and it makes me wonder if the reason they wanted to focus on the Doctor was because it was David Cronenberg.
It might have been, yeah, because they got a legendary director to come in and play a bad guy, although he's in a mask most of the time. So I guess
but just the fact that it was him, and the thing with Fox is, and Fox a lot of times has been so linear on we have to base it in an existing genre instead of letting it be what it needs to be. Kind of instead of just like, hey, this is our product, we're going to release it out there. It's, no, we need to make this a slasher film. We need to make this, it has to fit into this genre, and we're going to force it in. So then what you have is you have mismarketing, and mismarketing kills films.
Oh yeah.
When people go into a theater expecting one and they get something else, because first of all, the people who like that genre that you're promoting it to won't like the film because they didn't get what they want, and people who may have actually liked your film but don't like the genre you mismarketed it as won't go and see it. So you lose both ways when you mismarket it.
Yeah.
It's just a big circle of
that's the killer thing. Hopefully one day, I know Clive Barker has expressed interest that one day he hopes to get the reels, like the all the film reels together, and actually, because he has said that all the footage he wanted shot for the story, that all that shit is shot and it's on the original reels, and if he can get his hands on those original reels, that he can actually cut a version of the film that means that expresses what his vision was. So it'd be like the Clive Barker cut.
Nightbreed final cut.
So something like that, yeah. So we can only hope for that.
That would be awesome, because what, the reels are sitting in some warehouse
probably
somewhere collecting dust. Why not just be like, hey, you know what, take it and then re-release it as something? Okay, it takes him a couple months to edit it, and him find an editor and maybe a post-production guy, so it's not going to cost you a lot of money to do it, and then you can release something that could actually be super successful.
Yeah.
Netflix. Just saying.
Awesome. Well, all of that talk about all these different cuts brings us to a good question for our audience. What do you think is the best cut? Did you like the theatrical, the short and sweet, not a whole lot of information cut? Maybe the Cabal cut? I personally want to get a hold of the Scream Factory release, if that's like out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because now I'm interested, because I've only seen the theatrical cut, so...
With the Scream Factory cut, you get a real feel for the history that Barker wanted to put into the film.
Because that's what a lot of it is about.
Yeah, the world building.
Is the whole why, not what. Definitely not the fucking serial killer, because that wasn't like the point of the whole story. It was confusing.
Exactly.
I'm glad to know that there's a better version out there, so I'm going to seek that down. So yeah, let us know. Comments, theatrical, Cabal, Scream Factory, what's your favorite cut? I think we should probably see a recut now that you mentioned re-editing it.
Yeah, I'd like to shoot Clive Barker an email, just, hey, by the way.
Just in case you were thinking about this. Other people are thinking about it too. So.
Yeah.
We are. We definitely are.
Awesome. Well, Eugene, what do we got second today?
So, this is one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies that I saw in theaters. Kind of thing. I do love some sci-fi horror, right? And it came out February 18th, 2000, and that is a sci-fi horror, Pitch Black.
Oh, dude, I fucking love this movie.
I love this movie, starring Vin Diesel, Rahad Mitchell, and Cole Hauser, right? Directed by David, I'm going to butcher your last name, Toohey?
Toohey.
Toohey, David Toohey.
Close enough.
But for those of you, this is one of the movies that helped Vin Diesel become a huge star, because, it came out the same year as Fast and Furious.
Oh, yes.
I know. But you have a space transport ship that takes place in the future. Space transport ship, it crash lands on this planet, right? And it turns out that this planet is infested with these creatures that only come out at night, right? Which is fine because the planet spends most of the time during the day, except for its super long night cycle that fast approaches. And you have Vin Diesel playing this badass as the title character Riddick, who can see in the dark. And you have this eclectic group of characters, and they all have to bond together to fight to survive and make it to another ship. Against these man-eating creatures.
Man-eating creatures from the depths. The bioraptors.
Yes.
Not the Velocipaster, though. He's a good guy.
Although Velocipaster versus Bioraptor might be something we need to talk about.
No, that is not a bloodbath idea at all. I gotta admit, Pitch Black, I think, number one, I've loved for a long time, I've loved the work of David Twohy. He's a fantastic writer. One of my favorites of his films is The Arrival with Charlie Sheen.
Oh, yes.
I really, really dig that one. Not to mention, that one came out in the 90s. I think it was 96. 94, 96, either way. But that's a sci-fi deal. But anyway, to tackle global warming at that time in the fucking 90s. So that was interesting. But I love David Twohy's writing, and the universe he's created that he launched with Pitch Black. I mean, we're talking a franchise that's got 3 films under its belt. It's about to have a 4th. It's got 2 video games and an anime. I mean, it's huge. Obviously, Vin Diesel, it launched his career, as the Fury and Riddick. But you got to attribute its success because in 2000, this especially for the dump season, Pitch Black was one of those was a massive sleeper hit. Okay, Vin Diesel was still virtually unknown at the time. I think he was fresh off the heels. He did a small role in Saving Private Ryan, and then before that, he was in two independent films, Strays and Multifacial. And it was Strays, I think, was his first one, and then Multifacial was his second one, and that got the attention of Steven Spielberg, who then cast him in a small role in Saving Private Ryan, and off of that, he went on to do he did Riddick. And I attribute it to not only just the acting was solid, and the set was brilliantly designed. I love they shot it in New Zealand, amongst an area where there are all these giant termite mounds and everything. But the way they shot it, the way they lit it, I thought everything was absolutely brilliant. It was the perfect classic sci-fi horror formula. Okay, it's very, very easy to understand. You have your group of survivors, then you have your outliers. You have the pilot, you have the cop, Johns, and then you've got Riddick. Okay, then you take and each one of them represents something polar opposite of the other two. Okay, only that whole kind of thing. And then so you have these 3 people, these 3 leaders, all around the group of survivors, and then the lights go out and the monsters come out, and now it's everybody's got to survive. Everybody's got to back the right horse to get out of this. And there's some there's some interesting character stuff in there. It was perfectly done. A beautifully balanced and simple sci-fi horror script. I think Twohy nails sci-fi. Perfect 1, 2, 3 act composition.
He really did, and this is how you start a universe, because it hints that there's more, because it doesn't give you everything in the first movie or try to bombard you with all this information. It starts off like, this is kind of the way the world is, this is a little snippet of it, and if it garners enough interest, we'll broaden it. So there's a lot of things they talk about. It's like, obviously, okay, I don't really understand what's going on, away from what's happening to the characters at that moment, just to hint at a bigger world. But it doesn't overload you. It doesn't we're going to introduce this grand idea. We're going to throw 100 characters at you and throw a bunch of history and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, hey, this is a cool world. We're going to give you a little snippet of it right now. Like, and I like that. It's straight, it's streamlined, because it's like, okay, now I already like the characters. Now I'm willing to invest more into this world. So when you get like the Chronicles of Riddick, the second one that comes out, I'm way more invested because like now I want to know, where some of this other stuff that they were talking about is going on.
Oh yeah, like how did Riddick get his eyes shine? How long is John? We know that Riddick has his eyes shine. How did he get it? We know that Johns has been chasing Riddick for a long time. Okay. Well, you can't chase somebody that long without other shit happening. How did he get on him? What's going on? How did the injury to John's back? What happened? How did that go down? Okay, how did they wind up on this particular ship? What happened to John's ship? Okay, and also in building you've got in the survival group you have one thing that stood out to me is you have a group of multiple faiths. Okay, multiple faiths. You have the pilot. You have Rhoda Mitchell's character, the pilot, who obviously is more scientific, more analytical. She most likely I would attribute her to be, and I would say she's an atheist or atheistic, and that's just maybe agnostic. Johns, who's definitely a Christian. Riddick, who is also actually in for all by the script, he is also a Christian. But then you have walking hand in hand with Muslims. And walking hand in hand with the two prospectors, Claudia Black and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, and then of course the archaeologist. Everyone's got they're so diverse from their culture to their background to their faith, and like it. Yet you get a real sense that this is the future, because all of that past shit that would separate us today and make people look at each other with suspicion, all of that is gone. There is very, very easy acceptance there, which I really, 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 really enjoyed that. Just the world-building sense of that. And we wanted to know more in Chronicles of Riddick. We wanted to know. And then, they like in Chronicles of Riddick, when they introduced the planet, the name escapes me. The one with Keith David went to. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh. You're not talking about the prison planet.
No, not Crematoria.
The planet gets invaded?
Helion Prime. Okay, when he goes to Helion Prime, because it's a world where everybody lives in harmony, regardless of what you believe, regardless of your technological advancement or your wealth status or anything of that nature, and how one planet shares light with all the planets behind it in the solar system, which is really, really cool. Exactly, and Pitch Black could have stood alone on its own, but it left enough tiny little questions open. That was like, you know what, this would be really cool to explore. And the fact you have an unreliable, that basically Riddick is the narrator of the story. And we already know he's an unreliable narrator because he's a convicted murderer. He kills, without mercy when he needs to. Okay? He's completely and totally a self-serving survivalist. We know he's an unreliable narrator. So we know the story he gives about his eye shine is bullshit.
I like how you mentioned that everybody is together and put the past shit behind them, but I think that's pretty easy to do when you're getting attacked by fucking bioraptors. Those things were cool.
Okay, it's the monsters, yes.
Curly tails and weird-shaped hammerhead motherfuckers. Those things were pretty sweet. And I like how, like you said, it just gave little tidbits, and there was even a storyline behind these bioraptors, like the way that there's questions that I had watching it the first time, like, yeah, but I want to know more about their lives too. And so doing some research on it, I found out that they survived by eating each other. Which was like, oh wow, so they just live in tunnels underground.
Oh wow, that's brutal.
But it was I think it was really cool that they put a lot into it. There was enough storyline where they didn't have to put as much into the actual aliens, but they really did. So that was I like that they put a lot of thought into those and how.
From a filmmaking perspective, and I gotta ask you or kind of get Eugene's take on this one. It's pretty brilliant to have a monster that can only come out when it is dark. But because from a filmmaking standpoint, now from a storyline standpoint, for the audience, that means that the monster is constantly moving in shadow. You can never really see it. Okay, you can hear it when it's coming through, when it flies by you, glides by your head, stuff like this. But you never really see it coming because it can only be in the dark. Light hurts it, so it constantly has to be in the dark. But from a filmmaking standpoint, when you have a limited budget, especially for an independent film like this, I would say an independent film, for a lower budget film like this, it allows you to keep your monsters in shadow, and you don't have to show too much of them, because the more monster you see, the more it's going to cost.
Yeah, the more expensive it is, the more, because they used a lot of CG with the monsters, and CG is expensive.
Yes.
CG animators are not cheap at all, and they charge by the frame. So you think 24 frames per second, and so you got a creature on there
240
for
frames at,
5 or 10 seconds, which doesn't seem like a long time. That's a lot of money. So keeping, yeah, it adds up pretty. It adds up pretty quick, and so creating something in the dark so you don't have to rely on it as much. And the thing is and then letting the characters speak for themselves, kind of thing. But the one thing that was always interesting about the creature was I always wanted to know more, like in terms of the evolutionary tract, because it's like, okay, you get this planets in day, like super long time, and also it goes to night. I think it's like night for like 2 weeks or something like that. It made me want to know more. It's like, do these creatures live a long time and they just dormant? Or are they dormant for like years? Or, maybe they feast on each other, die real quick, and then, the next generation comes up
exactly.
when it's dark.
You're looking at these creatures now,
He just raised a lot of questions
if they hunt
that I just thought were interesting.
If they're hunting, if they come out of their holes, that means they're hunting something. What else is on the planet?
And also, the thing is that paying attention to the planet itself, what's genius about it is, like, there's not that many places to hide. Like, there's a moment where they sit there and they hide in a cave. But overall, there's not like a lot of trees, not like a lot of buildings. There's not. They go through basically across kind of like a mountain range with, like I said, they hit that one cave, but there's nowhere to like get shelter from.
It's wild.
There's just
the desert environment, and the fact that there are no trees, there's no foliage. Everything on the planet is dead on the surface. Their bones are scattered about all over the place, and yet these things are still alive. So to have killed everything on the planet during the nighttime does it does raise interesting questions as to how they came about. The fact that they can fly, obviously they
the ultrasonic sensors.
But I guess they run off echolocation, similar to they have like an ultrasonic ability to kind of gauge their environments, stuff like that. It's just a very, very interesting monster. Takes a little bit here and there from stuff we already realized, but a decent, I would say, at the time in the year 2000. I think the prevailing aliens at the time were Ridley Scott's Alien and of course the Predators, but they were, and maybe The Thing, but there wasn't really any major new aliens. Either they looked like they were human, they were humanoid, or
and that's like the art of making an alien. It's got to be something that you wouldn't ever see because you've never seen an alien. So you got to try to make something so different that. That's why you get all like the little green men, because it's like, okay, cool, we've just kind of decided this is an alien. Okay, cool, but then you actually go for it and make like, okay, what if they had to live subterraneanly? Like, what if they had all this open space to evolve in? What would you come up with? So that's pretty cool that's what they came up with.
Yeah.
Godzilla. Yeah, it's like what would strip a planet clean? That's exactly, because they're the only species that's left there. So it's like, what would end an entire like ecosystem, and that's what he came up with.
It's wild. And despite that, Riddick, which is the third film, was kind of pretty much just a rehash of Pitch Black with some kind of references back to Chronicles of Riddick. And the uncut version of that film is much, much better than the standard, because you get a lot more of the necromongers and him, that whole situation going on. But I did enjoy it, and I really do hope Riddick 4 gets made.
I do too, and this actually brings us to our CTA, our call to action, which is let us know in the comments below. Would you like to see a Riddick 4? We got Pitch Black in 2000, and shortly, I think 2004, we got Chronicles of Riddick, and then we got Riddick again in the late 2000, early 2010s. Are you excited about a Riddick 4? Should this continue on as a franchise, or is it something that is like a trilogy? It should be wrapped up and done. And let us know in the comments below.
You might as well.
I mean, personally, I would love to see
call Vin Diesel in between the Fast and Furious movies.
They keep doing Fast and Furious movies, so you might as well keep doing Riddick movies too.
Yeah, the dude, Diesel's staying in shape. He is.
Well, you have to be indestructible in the Fast and Furious movies, because apparently he is.
Oh my God, that latest trailer that came out with the Super Bowl, it's getting too extreme for me.
Yeah, it's at this point. I like that meme where it's like, they should just fight the Avengers now.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, clearly they're at that status.
Threat.
Our cars are obviously our superpowers.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
All right, Jail. What do we got next?
All right. So this third one, really, really good. One I particularly enjoyed. It came out February 19th, 2016. A divisive film. But this was the freshman effort from director Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Oh, one of my favorite movies.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. As I said, directed by Robert Eggers, his first film, and written and directed by him, and starring Anna Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson, Kate Dickie, and Harvey Scrimshaw. The plot line is pretty simple. For those who have not seen it, is pretty simple. A Puritan family. This is in the mid-1700s. Actually, sorry, no, mid-1600s. Sorry,
yeah, mid-1600s.
1600s. A Puritan family moves out into the woods to kind of, live, start there, have their family, and establish the area, and soon come under attack by supernatural forces. Yes, a very, very, very creepy film. I have to say, but very deep, miles deep in its interpretations. I think anybody who watches this would come away with a different kind of understanding of the film, or their different takeaways, which I think resulted in it being so divisive. Not to mention, I think it was marketed.
I agree with the way that
it shouldn't have
put
been.
that. It was marketed in a way
but
it shouldn't have been. Because when I first saw the trailer for the movie, I was like, "Wow, this is going to be like a horror movie." And then I started getting into it, and I mean, I personally saw this as like the family was just so susceptible to the devil, I guess you could call it that, or the dark forces, if you will. And the whole thing, and it really played off of religion in my mind, the time period, and how there was each person in the house kind of had a dark side or a sin, and that's what kind of brought this negative. I want to say devil, but it's obviously the witch, the dark forces. That's what I'm trying to say. Into it. So I personally, that's what I took away from it. As just being kind of an over-the-top religious film. It was a good movie, but like you said, going into it and looking into it, people have taken away so many different things from this movie. And I mean, I bet you both have different interpretations of this movie.
Yeah, because you look at this time period in American history, because this is pre-United States, right? You're talking Plymouth Rock. They hit that 10 years before this movie takes place, kind of thing. And you kind of see it as this super religious in the hellish landscape that they're living in, because this was not a great area, great time period to live in at all, because you have disease, it was hard to grow crops, they didn't know the land or the area or anything like that. So you have this hard, rigid lifestyle. And so what it does is it makes them rely on their faith even more on top of that, because it's, you must suffer because God intends you to suffer, and all this other kind of stuff. And so it gets to the point where they rely on it so much, it starts altering how they perceive reality, kind of thing.
Oh, it's wild in that respect, how Eggers expertly drew upon not only the history and of course like you mentioned the stark reality of trying to survive in that environment in this untouched, untamed wilderness. After the family gets sent away from the colony, and it was over a religious dispute. After the family the family gets sent away, kind of banished from the group, they have to go out there and kind of fend for themselves. You take the hostility of that environment. You take the hostility of their religion, of how they believed and what they believed, and then you put them alone in the woods to survive for themselves with no group, okay, to establish their own system. And they virtually prey upon themselves.
They really do, because at that time, when you were exiled from a community or a village, that was a death sentence. That was them basically condemning you to death without actually just killing you. Because there was not like another city or a village that you could go to. They're like, hey, you need to leave the colony. Well, then that's it. There's nowhere else to go. There's no one else that you can go to. Native Americans can be hit or miss. They might befriend you. They might leave you alone, or they might kill you. You don't know at the time period. So they were basically like sentenced to death. And they're going to try to survive as long as possible.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And, it just... And I like how one of the things was that the director was very adamant on being historically accurate. So he actually had history consultants come out there, and the cabin that they built a full cabin, the whole layout, the clothes they wear. There was actually even
that would have been rough
about actually using nothing but English from that time period.
Oh, that would have been really hard to understand.
And that was the one reason the Robert Eggers actually wanted to do that, to make it as authentic as possible. And eventually they're like, okay, we got to kind of use a little bit more modern English because people won't understand what they're saying, kind of thing. So he ended up giving in on that a little bit, but I mean everything was historically accurate as possible as he could make. But the one thing that we don't get very much of is actually like period horror films, kind of thing. We don't get a lot of those.
That was a great
horror
movie.
Films that are taking place like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Yeah,
that was
thing.
The Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
That was a great movie. That was a really underrated.
That was a good one too.
Kind of thing. Yeah, Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter. But a lot of it is with the horror genre. So the horror genre is typically known for being some of the cheaper films to make. Because you can get away with it. Because, you don't have to name cast and all sorts of kind of stuff. They're just, horror films are just cheaper to make. Well, the thing is period films, no matter what genre, are some of the most expensive to make. Because you basically have to recreate everything. Any filmmaker out there, you're going to go shoot in a house. Well, you can walk in a house, maybe half the house is already set up the way you want, so you just leave it the way it is and fill in some of your important props and stuff like that. Or actors bring their own clothes, or bring a couple of clothes, you just pick which one you want, versus a history film where you got to make, all the outfits have to be made, right?
Yep.
All your sets have to be built, or they have to be brought in, and you have to have, the thing is with those outfits that they wear, you can't go to Party City and just get them cheap. So they have to be made by professionals, right? Or costume designers and all this other kind of stuff. And it becomes expensive. Now, the thing with The Witch is, luckily, it mostly takes place in that one setting. So that helped out cost-wise. But that's why you don't see a lot of period horror films.
Just recreating the costumes
you don't
alone.
Because
hey, did you guys know that there's like a conspiracy theory on this
just
movie?
Recreating the time period.
Yeah.
That the witch isn't actually real.
Really?
No.
The argument is that
a hallucination.
The witch only shows up after Thomason falls asleep or before she wakes up, and so it's like apparently it's like a dream state, and it all plays into there's the dream where after she falls asleep, then the witch is like grinding the child, and that weird ass scene where it was like the dream scene, but it's supposed to like play into like it's like the guilt of her like killing the baby, and it's all like stuff that's up in her head, like all these scenarios. They're just dreams essentially, tormenting her for the things that she's done, her sins. Yeah, like the things that like she's had to do to survive or something and stuff, like that, and just like guilt.
So how does that?
Because like
square with the ending?
She doesn't kill the twins at the end.
That all that's in her imagination.
And the goat doesn't either. But they die from like I guess like being outside and not eating, and she only joins the witch's coven after waking up from another sleep, and they're all fever dreams. There is no witch.
Exposure.
And then like they pull in like the title that's supposed to be with like the double V instead of okay, so I guess the whole thing is it's just like it's trying to just signify like the suffering and abuse of the children. That it was all the witch scenes are all fever dreams. No, you just kind of assume.
The weird thing is like with the twins, you never find out what happens to them.
No, they just after on the last day they just vanished. Oh yeah, all the goats were dead and the twins were missing, and it's just and then she's asleep or she's passed out, with blood on her hands.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I guess if you're looking like super deep into it, you probably take a few different things away from that.
Brutal setup.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man,
you really can.
And not to mention some just brutal scenes. When Caleb died, Caleb's death scene was brutal. The scene with the crow, when she thinks it's her baby, that was rough. And of course, it really took me by surprise when Black Phillip takes out the dad.
Yeah,
that was surprising
because he comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
And I was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff of it, and apparently the goat was really difficult to work with.
He doesn't care.
The director was like, "I'm trying to make a movie, and I keep trying to tell the goat that, and the goat just does not give a shit. He does whatever a goat wants to do."
Look at the size of that fucker. He's not gonna care about nothing. Well, this leads me to ask, because this was Robert Eggers' first film, and his second film is the critically acclaimed The Lighthouse. So, which is also an impressive movie if you have not seen it. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson gave stellar performances. It is definitely a psychological horror film. But my question for the audience, for our listeners, is which of his two films that are currently out, which did you prefer? Did you prefer The Witch, or maybe The Lighthouse? Both kind of period pieces. Both can be very confusing at times. You can definitely take away a lot. He's very open to interpretation. We see that Eggers is very much a fan of the unreliable narrator. When it comes to how we perceive, when we perceive through somebody else's eyes, we never really are sure we're getting the whole story. But both fantastic films. Which one did you like? Did you like The Witch, or did he improve with The Lighthouse? Or was it a step in different directions? Let us know. We'd love to know.
We are going to move
Alex,
forward, but also very far back.
Next?
In a long time ago movie called Murders in the Rue Morgue. Came out February 21st, 1932. That's a long time ago, man. This is this is a story written. This is, I guess, an adaptation of a story written by Edgar Allan Poe. Robert Fleury took over and directed this one. This stars Bela Lugosi, Sidney Fox, Leon Ames. A lot of names that I don't recognize because of the period, I guess. But yeah, definitely Bela Lugosi and Sidney Fox. And this is a movie that takes place in 19th century Paris. The maniacal Dr. Miracle abducts these women and injects them with ape blood in an attempt to prove ape human kinship. But he fails repeatedly, and it's terrible. For the people involved, because it's God, when did Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde come out?
It's a mad scientist shit, definitely.
Was it before or after
30,
this?
I think 33?
Or 30. Oh, I thought it was 31.
Was it 31 also? I know Dracula came out in 31.
Dracula came out in 31, that's right. But Jekyll and Hyde...
I'm trying to think right now.
That was a great year.
31,
so this came out
31.
after that. Okay,
Yeah, 31
that
also.
sense.
Man, 31 was
just
a
on
good
the play
year.
of the Doctor.
For horror movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they do all sorts of weird shit in that lab, and then the cops get involved.
Yeah. I mean...
Dude, it was what was the name of the because Dr. Miracle has a
you mean very clearly a
chained up in his lab
man in a gorilla suit.
named Eric. Well, I mean it's 1932. I mean the design, the design techniques aren't what they are today. I imagine it would be a difficult process to make that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this was actually coming about where it was actually kind of a last second thing that they ended up putting together, because one of the things about the film was, after the success of Dracula, they basically were like, okay, well, we need to do something with Bela Lugosi, and so this was heavily rushed into production. Kind of thing.
Okay, that explains it.
Heavily kind of thing. Now, even back then in films, today a turnover of a feature film is anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years from like script to screen. Mm-hmm. Back then it could be 3 months. Kind of thing. I mean, that's why we keep talking about films like, oh, well, Dracula came out, and Frankenstein came out, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Man, these all seem to come out like in an 18-month span, because you could do films that fast. But the thing about doing films that fast is sometimes you kind of, you gotta work with what you got.
That's true.
For the gorilla,
hey, you leave Eric alone.
They worked with what they got
monkey.
in a very, very, very short notice.
Dude.
I gotta tell you, man, that suit looked brutal.
And then you got your own like ape language you gotta try to fucking give a shit about while you're inside of this hot, stinky...
Yeah, and the thing is, with costume people and stuff like that at that time, they didn't have the same rules, regulations, and knowledge that we have today.
Bring the lead.
Obviously you want to use things like non-toxic paint and stuff like that. And certain level.
Oh, he's referencing the first actor who played the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz.
Exactly. Yeah.
Builder Square.
Because at the time you just bought paint from like your Home Depot, your regular house paint. Yeah, and you painted your actor.
There was what happened to the actress who played the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh, that's good.
The green paint that they used on her was copper based. So yeah, and she suffered copper poisoning from wearing that. That one was really, really bad. But the silver paint almost killed the original actor.
Yeah, he got real sick.
That they used the silver paint on him for the Tin Man, and almost killed his ass. Then, and I mean that ape suit that whoever the actor was who was wearing it in Murders, that thing looked like it weighed 100 pounds.
It couldn't have been comfortable. It couldn't, it looked so cumbersome, moving around in it. I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah. Gotta give him props. Give him props for getting through it.
Yeah, round of applause. I do not know your name, but here's to you. Ape Man from 1932.
Well, you mentioned the fact this was a rush film. It was story behind it was an extremely difficult production, and the big story behind this one was that, and it was a quick adaptation. It was an easy adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story. At the time, Universal was churning out book adaptations because they were one of the first studios to jump on the rights bandwagon for books, for basically all the legendary stories that were out there, which is why they got Dracula, from Bram Stoker, and Frankenstein from Mary Shelley, and so on and so forth, because at the time, licensing rights were far different than they were today. So Universal struck while the iron was hot, started cranking out all these sound movies with all these monsters in it, and Edgar Allan Poe's stories were an easy thing to adapt, just because everybody was familiar with it at the time, and his death was not that far. It was only, I think it was less than 50 years. I think it was like he died in the late 1800s, and so and after his death, people started really reading his stuff, so they could adapt it easily, and this film came about because of the success of Dracula. Universal Universal pretty much owed Bela Lugosi a movie, and the reason they owed him that movie was not only because of the success of Dracula, but because originally Bela Lugosi was supposed to be involved in Frankenstein, the one that went to Boris Karloff, and he kind of got screwed out of that and didn't get the opportunity to be in that movie, and so now they have a pissed off Bela Lugosi on their hands, who is supposed to be their Dracula, and they decided to throw him a movie. So, unfortunately, Murders in the Rue Morgue not only had that fast turnaround and that last-minute production, which, of course, creates all manner of problems, but it basically was just thrown to Bela Lugosi just for basically to get him off their backs. They owed him a movie. They owed him a starring role. Here, take this piece of shit and run. And of course, back then, you're not going to turn down any movie you get your hands on, especially if you're the lead. So they threw him this, and he jumped on it. And what kind of turned out was not really Lugosi's best work ever. And the film was widely lambasted by the critics who saw it at the time. I believe cited for an overuse of terrorizing is how the critics put it back then.
I love that phrasing back then.
Yeah, it tried way too hard to try and be scary, and they decided the acting was bad. A lot of the visual, what we would deem visual effects just did not play, and that kind of rush nature of the film, it really, really hurt it. So it wound up being pretty much panned by the critics. Didn't make a lot of money. The production itself was difficult. You had issues with Lugosi. They had a lot of trouble finding the right females, the right women for the role. I know Bette Davis was turned down for this movie because for a lack of sex appeal for some reason. So maybe not the brightest minds behind this thing, but it got made. It's in the can, and they tried, at least, but turned out not to be one of the best of Universal's. I mean, obviously, no Creature from the Black Lagoon, no Phantom of the Opera, no nothing like that. Just kind of like one of those, throw it out there, scary movies, and maybe that's why it was in a dump season. We don't know.
Well, plus the way contracts worked back then, it's not like today where you say, okay, well, we're going to get like an actual intellectual property or a script, and then we'll pull people towards that, and eventually you'll sign a contract or sign on to a film. The way it worked back then in the 30s was they would like somebody or something like that, and you would sign like a 3-movie deal without knowing what the 3 movies were. Like, at all.
That's true.
And they would do that with actors
Hollywood.
And directors and stuff like that. So they could legit owe you a movie because you signed a 3-movie deal, and so all of a sudden you get 2 movies, and then they're like, okay, well, we have to make a 3rd one for you, so let's get everybody that we owe a movie to, that we don't want to, so we'll just throw them in one movie just to get the check in a box, and then just whatever comes out of it's whatever comes out of it. In 1932.
Oh, and the studio bosses back then were brutal. If you got into that was some of the great stars. Like Charlie Chaplin, Fatty Arbuckle, a lot of the major silent stars ran into that problem with because the studios controlled everything. So you had a top-down power structure that pretty much wrested all control from anybody, and whereas actors were highly paid because they got portions of the box office, because that's how they made their money. So they got their paycheck. It wasn't like, there were like all these there wasn't like there was a major union presence that was protecting these people. So it was virtually no different than like when actors were in Shakespeare's time, when they the whole reason that they take a bow at the end of the deal and then money gets thrown up on stage, when the people used to throw coins on stage, that's how stage actors would make their living. And then based upon how well they did would depend upon how much money got thrown up on stage, how many pennies got thrown up there. And then that's what they were going to use to eat that night. Okay, or find a place to sleep if they couldn't sleep in the theater. And but back in the 30s, the 20s and the 30s, actors weren't treated they made money, but they weren't exactly treated with the amount of respect that we see today. Celebrities were one thing, but they went through a lot of shit that our people, that modern day celebrities do not go through. So the horror stories that I've heard.
Oh yeah, I mean it was common. It was common for actors to do movies that they didn't want to do, or being forced into situations that they don't want to be in, and that kind of thing, because with the studio and the executives controlling everything, they can easily kill somebody's career.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Easily.
And that was back when they could blacklist your ass.
Yeah. It's not like today where actors can have so many outlets that if one studio is like, we don't want to work with this actor, they can garner enough attention to get some from somebody else, especially with social media today and all other kind of stuff. Back then, the studios would blacklist you, and then you were just gone, and the audience didn't ask what happened to you. There wasn't as much press as there is today, or a TMZ or something like that. You just didn't appear in movies anymore, and the audience just moved on.
Yeah, bringing it back around to the star of the show, Bela Lugosi. I have a question for the audience. I would like to know what your favorite Bela Lugosi role is. Because this one was kind of way out there, but they did stuff like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I thought that one was great. He's got stuff like The Wolfman, White Zombie, The Black Cat, Dracula, a whole slew of like The Ghost of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, all sorts of cool stuff. So what's your favorite role he's played in? This one was not mine. He's in a ton of movies, like The Raven. That was a good one.
It's probably not a lot of people's.
This is not mine.
And he played with Boris Karloff in Body Snatcher.
His filmography was magnificent.
That was another one. So yeah, let us know. And then we are going to move on to our last movie with Eugene.
All right, the last movie, right? It was a little gem that came out February 22nd, 2005, and it's the third installment in a trilogy, and the film is called Cube Zero, right? Directed by Arnie Barbarish, and starring Zachary Bennett, David Hubin, and Stephanie Moore, right? And if you're familiar with the Cube series, basically with all the films, is you get people who are trapped in a giant science experiment. And it's made up of all these cubes, think like a Rubik's Cube, but except each little box is a room. And some of the rooms are safe, and some of the rooms are booby-trapped. And like a Rubik's Cube, the cubes move around. So on a certain pattern kind of thing. So you can walk into one cube, hold there long enough, and then turn around and go back to where you came from, and it'll actually be a different room. And people are trying to figure out how to get out of it. What sets Cube Zero apart from the original Cube and Hypercube is it kind of starts diving into the origin, because Hypercube and Cube start off, people are just in the cube. You don't really know the history of the cube. They don't really go into it or anything like that. They're just there and they're trying to survive and try to figure a way out. This kind of actually, you start seeing people outside the cube. People watching these experiments and kind of dive, what is the purpose of these experiments? Because the people inside never really know, kind of thing. And so it kind of actually starts diving into that a little bit. In terms of, just a little bit of curiosity when we talked about earlier in terms of world building. Doesn't build nearly as much of a world as the Riddick movies, but it kind of gives you just a little bit more insight of what's going on.
Yeah, it was. I particularly like these movies for their design, because it when you have a film like this where you're creating the illusion of a giant cube. I think in the first one there was something like 17,000 rooms that were all cubes within this giant cube. Yes. and they're all like moving around like that, and it's absolutely insane. But a movie like this, especially a sci-fi horror film, it really brings out the kind of the creative, I'd say the need to be extremely creative with your production design in order to obviously cut costs, save money. But every single cube, you go through, you get kind of sucked in. Each room is something new. Is it safe? Is it not? It's terrifying like this. But I always go back and remind myself when I see it that for the production of the film, for the making of it, there was only one cube. It was one room, and that's all you ever see is the same room. Actors coming in and actors coming out of the exact same room every time. And the way that they change the lighting in each one is that they built these slick little openings in each one of the walls where they could slide in a gel and change the coloring of the room on the fly.
That's cool.
And they have it lit from all angles. And then of course they set up their cameras at the various angles that they need to in order to produce the illusion of actors coming up into the cube, coming in from the side, coming down from the top. And it's literally just one set. It's one room, and then with removable doors. So you have a cube, and then you could remove a panel from the cube and shoot like you were shooting into like a box, like shooting a stage. Okay, you have the proscenium, the fourth wall, which the actors are playing against. Then you can simply, as you move your angles, you put the wall back and remove the next wall and shoot from that angle. Okay. So really, really brilliant stuff that they got extremely well. They did very, very well with it in Cube Zero, because then they established it. The technology got better. They were able to do more things with the cube when this came out. But the idea that you're seeing these actors moving from place to place and going through all these doors and trying to deal with this shit, when you realize
that's so crazy.
Production-wise, it's the same room every single time.
Yeah, but the thing is that it never feels like the same room.
Yes, it makes it very, very interesting. I always found that was really cool. And then of course you can do, instead of trying to do big complicated things, you can just put your special effects. You just change your lighting, maybe shoot from different angles, maybe change the music a little bit to create a new environment or to create a new kind of emotional state within the room, and then you just alter up your special effects. And then you just shoot your actors coming in and out of and dropping down into and climbing out of the exact same room every single time. So, really, and then really, really cool stuff. I imagine as an actor being a very fun set to work on and be able to play around with. Because I know, like, in Hypercube, there were handrails on each of on the walls. Because in the first one, it was just a portal. And then you came in through the portal and you came in through the door. You popped in the door and you dropped down into the room, and that was it. But I believe in the second one, the walls had handrails that you could hang from. So the thing is like a jungle gym.
Yeah.
For the actors that they could bounce around in. So, and then of course, react to the shit that's there. It's a lot of fun.
It had to be like one of like the easiest films to produce, because you're like, usually like a producer has to get a bunch of locations, and your feature film has probably around 200 scenes, so you're like, 100 plus locations and all this other kind of stuff, or 50 locations, and it's like, nope, we just built one box, entire movie, right here. That's it.
Just goes to show. I mean, if you have the right director, you can do a lot with little. I mean, shit. Look what they. I can't remember who directed, but look what they did with Phone Booth. I just watched Colin Farrell for almost 2 hours in a phone booth, and I was totally engrossed. So, yeah, as long as you get those creative minds. That's why I like movies like this in particular, because you get to see people really stretch, really stretch their creative, stretch their imagination, and really, really flex their creativity to try and make something as engrossing and suspend that disbelief in order to draw people in.
Yeah,
Not to mention, you get into
the surface of it is
idea of the cube and what's going on, especially in Cube Zero, because they explore the origins of it, why it was made, why people are being.
Either way, they use it as like I remember Cube 2, they were talking about it being a weapon.
Deep on this.
And produced by a weapons company. And then, like you said, Cube Zero really gets into the back.
Yeah.
So starting at the front of it, it starts out mathematical, because I think if I remember correctly, I haven't seen the first one in a long time, but they were looking at like prime numbers, had a lot to do with that one, and then.
Yeah, each one of the rooms was marked by a series of three-digit numbers. That from those three-digit numbers, depending upon where you moved them,
primes.
You could then, source the coordinates, the X, Y, and Z axis coordinates of where the room was in regards.
And then
to
in Zero, they were it had a lot to do with talking about.
But you had to know, but
the whole thing was like everybody they had like a fair shot at the whole thing. You had to be able to
calculate. You had to be able to calculate primes very, very quickly, depending upon the numbers that you were looking at.
And so, just having to go through every single step of the way with people dying off left and right kind of left you at a disadvantage in the whole thing. But it was from the Cube Zero. It really you had to. Everybody played their roles. I liked that one because they went more into the origin of the whole situation.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed about the Cube series is everybody it's there to provide some kind of help in a way, even though most people don't realize it right off the bat. Where it's is it leadership? Is it in the first Cube was the one guy, he was slow in certain aspects, but he could do prime numbers really quick. And so it's once they realize, this is the guy who can tell you if the room is safe. This is somebody who can do this. This is somebody who can do that. And it's you actually have to work together to even get out of the cube. But one of the big things about the cube is
I know we had talked about it for a minute and it went deep.
It's regarded as an experiment, but it's set up to fail.
Yeah, there's it's so wild. So, and I got to admit, we might rabbit hole on this for a bit. So I started so it's very, very interesting. So the notion of the cube, and I'm going to try and get through this without losing our listeners. But the notion of the cube is that the experiment is designed by the government and is basically, in their eyes, a test of humanity. So the groups of individuals that are being put into the cube, they're being trapped in the cube with no memory. They wake up, they're in the cube, they don't know how they got there, and sometimes they don't even remember who they are at first. They wake up in the cube, and they basically have to escape. They generally end up dying, usually very, very badly. But we find out in Cube Zero, that the cube is a test. It's basically a humanity test. And if someone makes it to the exit, they are asked by the controller, by one of the individuals controlling the cube, if they believe in God. Which then they answer in the negative. They do not, because how could a God exist and allow what's going on in the cube to actually take place? I was just saying. So
no, we're not
and
Christian.
After they say no, they don't believe in God. The controllers then end up incinerating them. And then that's basically that's the end of that test. Then they do the test again. The problem with go ahead. So yes, from their perspective, what we see is the government's storyline is that they are testing humanity to affect some greater purpose. The reality of it is the people who are in control of it are actually dumping people. Under the guise of the experiment, they're actually dumping people into the cube itself who are dangers to them. So these are people in high political power. And we find out that they're actually dumping people in here who are a threat to their political power. Okay? And they've been doing this the whole time. So it's basically a lot of really, really powerful people protecting themselves under the guise of this experiment because inherently they know the experiment is a failure. The experiment cannot be successful in the sense of testing humanity in this state, in its most extreme of states. Because in its most extreme of states of survival, God does not factor into it. And so the whole thing doesn't work. And the notion of the cube, I had to know where this came from, and I looked into this. This is very, very interesting. Is that the philosophy behind it we can actually stem back from the inspiration from a book called The Library of Babel. Okay? Which was written by a Spanish author named Jorge Borges. And a very, very interesting story. I'm not going to go into the whole detail of it, but basically it's about a universe. It's about an entire universe that people populate, and the universe is composed of hexagonal rooms, and each room is basically a library. There's like a massive bookshelf, a collection of books in each room. Now, all of the books in the library are composed of every single word, or actually, sorry, they are the maximum, every permutation of the 26 letters of the alphabet plus commas, periods, and exclamation points and question marks. So it's 26, 79, I think it's like 30. So there's, of these characters, each book in the library consists of a 410-page manuscript that is every permutation of all those letters and punctuation points in every single book. Okay? So it's literally enough, permutations to be a universe. And so within this library exists all known information. Everything could possibly be here, which means you will find a copy of War and Peace. You'll find a copy of War and Peace where there's one letter wrong. Okay? Then you'll find a copy of War and Peace where there's 2 letters wrong, and so on and so forth, with every single book ever made. Plus, all the versions that are absolutely gibberish because the letters don't add up to make anything. Now, there is no rhyme or reason to this, and what the exploration was is that you have all this information at hand. You have everything you need right there in your hands, and it's basically pointless.
The internet?
The whole thing is pointless because it's such a glut of information that you can't effectively do anything with it in the time that you have. Okay, so the world's at your fingertips, and it's pointless. It is, it's an interesting concept because we see that in the cube. That
but you keep going because you want to survive.
To get out of here is right there in front of you. But there's so much information to deal with it that you couldn't possibly analyze all of it and get through it in your lifetime, so the whole system breaks down. That's where
because of the incinerator rooms.
Exactly. That's the but I mean the odds are so stacked against you, and you have a limited amount of time, and the limited amount of time is your lifespan, and it's even more limited because of all the traps that are all around you. So exactly. So you wind up. So people wind up doing in the cube exactly what they did in the Library of Babel in the short story. In the Library of Babel, you have people that end up creating cults, looking for one specific book throughout the library, their sacred book, okay? Or you have cults looking for one specific room, because you can move from room to room to room to room, okay? But they're looking for that one room, this particular room, and they won't stop until they found it. And then they come into, and then you have another cult that specifically burns the books that don't make any sense. If the books are gibberish, they destroy them, okay? And that's what their job is. And then they come into conflict with one another. And then you have people that are just living their lives. They move from room to room. They don't move from room to room. They stay where they are. It doesn't matter. But ultimately, the whole thing breaks down and fails. Which is exactly what happens in the cube. Because there's so many choices. You have a limited amount of time. You have everything you need to survive. You have all the knowledge collected around you. Okay? But it's so stacked against you. And there's so much you have to do. You just end up devolving into, and each individual in the group ends up devolving into basically who they are. When the cop turns against everybody in the first one, okay, and you basically wind up having an antagonist that winds up fucking everything up.
It
okay,
really
because certain individuals can't handle this. And then all of this comes full circle when I realize, or it basically came around for a circle when I realized that the whole thing is a perfect analogy for the internet.
No, and that's why you got clicks. Some people are into Instagram, and some people are into sleuthing.
Yes. The world's information at our fingertips. The vast majority of it is gibberish and doesn't mean anything, but it's all there. But you couldn't possibly get through all of it in your lifetime. Exactly. And it comes out, I did further research. There actually was a follow-up to the Library of Babel. Was another story that was written that came out in 1995.
See, you say failure, but it had just come out in 95. I mean, like the internet came out in like 92
the Library of Babel
or 3
was
or
digital,
something like that.
And it was a direct analogy for the internet itself, and basically the ambition of the internet, but the failure of the internet. In that sense,
leave it to the human race to fuck it all up.
But he saw that. He had that idea. It was like, wow, the world's information at our fingertips. Anything you could possibly want to know is right there but there's so much of it you couldn't possibly hope to get it all in your lifetime. So so it turns into a collection of echo chambers, people siding with the people who agree with them. You wind up getting your cliques and your factions, and people go to town like that. Then you have these cults that pop up, and then they die off.
It'll break your brain.
And then some are big, some are small, some are whatever. And then and literally that is what this has become. And that is why. And I'm pretty sure you can go deeper. I did not go deeper down this rabbit hole with the Cube series. I did not. It was too much. It made my brain hurt. But it was a very, very interesting kind of idea that Cube would become analogous to the internet that we deal with every day.
Yeah, because I remember reading an article about YouTube when they surpassed more content that you can watch in your lifespan, where they hit 120 years of content.
Challenge accepted.
And this was, I think, maybe back 2014 or 15 or something like that kind of thing. So it's probably quadrupled since then.
Oh, good Lord.
Kind of thing. And so it's actually insane. It's like you can go on YouTube and you can never watch every single video on there.
It lasted 3 days. Didn't fucking drink any water.
And this will be Alex's last night with Week in Horror. We will miss him.
Rest in peace.
I will be sure to take pictures when I pry him out of his chair from... But yes, a surprisingly deep film, especially for an on-the-surface sci-fi horror film, with some surprisingly intelligent philosophy and mathematics behind it. And it's such a shame because I heard that we were going to get a kind of a remake of the first film by Lionsgate, but that apparently stalled out in 2016, and we haven't heard shit from it since. So it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, and see, I wouldn't want one. To me, there's no reason for it. I liked the first one so much. I think it was so well done, and they had kind of a little bit of an indie feel to it, and I actually really liked that with the film.
Cool.
It seemed basic and raw.
Oh, I did, and I like the starkness of it. The kind of like the white and the silver. I wouldn't say really silver, but the metallic edges and the metallic framework and the white paneling, and how there were actually, I think there were 5 colors throughout the whole film. And that's another example of them changing those gels out for every single person. So, actually each color represented an individual in the group, which is kind of cool. So, but yeah, I mean, just the simplicity of it.
I do. I think that's the way it should go. And this is actually what I like to ask the audience.
I think you could really
what is your favorite entry in the Cube series? Is it the first Cube? Is it Hypercube? Or is it this one, Cube Zero? Let us know. Or, should they remake one or maybe just add a 4th one? Hey, let us know in the comment section below.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah.
I think in the right hands, it could be really good. Yeah, right hands. But... So, now that he's retired, it has a chance. If there's a Cube video game, he would have made another movie.
Oh, good God.
Yeah. And so, we got a couple of birthdays.
We do. First birthday on our list, February 17th, 1965. We want to wish a happy birthday to actor Jonathan Breck. Actor and stuntman.
He's a fucking creep, man.
Who I think... more of our...
I will never... whenever I think of that movie, I just think of him fucking in the cornfield when he's hopping
behind the
after he gets all fucked up and he's hopping.
Jeepers Creepers.
Yes. Hey, great.
Yeah, and he's hopping through the corn. Boing! Boing! It's the fucker's getting closer. He better probably run. Ah! Then he's a little bit closer.
He was after she ran him over with the car.
Yeah. Yes, Texas boy.
When they're trapped in the bus, and it's on top of the bus kind of thing in the second one.
Well, Jonathan is a Houston native. He's a Texas native. He was born in Houston. Yeah, born in Houston. He's had one of those kind of TV careers. He's done a lot of stuff on television, JAG, Star Trek Voyager, VIP, Push. Done a bunch of stuff there, but I it's sad to say, but he's a talented actor. But The Creeper is pretty much his most notable role. Playing that monster in Victor Salva's horror trilogy. Hopefully, we'll get a fourth one, which I think he's already contracted to do, in order to pretty much finish up the storyline. Of what the Creeper is, where it came from, and all that stuff. I particularly enjoyed Jeepers Creepers 3, even though it was a little on the cheaper side than the first. The first one was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So agreed.
So I really do. I hope he gets to do a fourth one. I don't know as far as his career goes, but I think at this point he's kind of hanging his hat on the Jeepers Creepers role. I know he's a staple at conventions from all over the place, so maybe if I ever run into him, if I ever see him at like Texas Frightmare Weekend or like that, I'll have to ask him. But I'm hoping. Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to check. But I know he makes the circuit, or he's on the circuit a bit. So fingers crossed. Maybe we'll see a 4. I realize
it'd be nice.
3 didn't perform as well as I'd hoped it would, just because of the direct-to-DVD release, and then the stuff with Victor Salva's past.
Happy birthday,
I don't want to get
Jonathan.
into it too hardcore right here, but hopefully he'll get a chance to shine.
Hey, we got the only Drew Barrymore. February 22nd, 1975.
So, but yeah, that's a happy birthday to Jonathan
Drew Barrymore.
And happy birthday, Jonathan.
Happy birthday.
What, back when E.T. came out?
Who's our second birthday?
Hey, I was going to leave it alone. Y'all brought it back up.
Drew Barrymore.
That's fair.
She was an early crush of mine.
I guess if we're sticking to
oh God, dude, come on, dude.
If we're sticking to horror, you're looking at like half a can Firestarter. That would have been a good one for you, huh?
Dude, I'm talking like Poison Ivy and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
she was in
fair.
Scream, a movie called Doppelganger. If you haven't seen it, definitely check that out. Far From Home was another one. I guess she would have been closer to teenage years
awesome
then.
Film. A fantastic Stephen King.
What was
by the way.
When did? What movie did you say? Oh, Poison Ivy. That came out in like '92, right? Yeah, it was a good movie. Drew Barrymore. Oh yeah. The whole. I love her because she could play any role. You put her anywhere. She's in horror. She's in comedy. She's in drama.
Yeah, even like Drew Barrymore, even like Donnie Darko.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely talented. What is it? Her pedigree coming from the Barrymore.
Okay, are you talking about like
pretty damn impressive?
40 or 50 First Dates?
Multi-generational. I got to tell you guys, I'm kind of a sucker for her work with Adam Sandler.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Like The Wedding Singer.
And anyway, either Wedding Singer, 50 First Dates, or Blended. Well, Blended was not as great. I love Drew and Adam's chemistry.
And even Blended, to me, like, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not saying as good as 50 First Dates,
but I was funny as fuck.
I've watched this.
Yeah, I love 50 First Dates. Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's the best of their duo. But even with Blended, like, I was bored and it was on TV, and so I threw it on, and it was like I was pleasantly surprised. Exactly. Man. I haven't said that with a lot of Adam Sandler movies.
Immensely talented actress. I was so bummed when Santa Clarita Diet got canceled. That was just her. That's a beautiful thing about Drew Barrymore. Her chemistry with pretty much anybody she works with, because she and Timothy Olyphant were fantastic, and I thought played so well off of each other. And it was an interesting storyline, a kind of a fresh take on zombies.
From what I heard, it had a lot to do with like the cast too was having an issue.
I don't know.
At some point,
it kind of died. So
yeah, I was reading something
out of the
when the
canceled, but that's Netflix.
Third season came out, or whatever the last season was came out.
Strange decisions.
Yeah, the third season came out. I was reading up. Are they going to be doing a 4? And I guess there was just so much there was so much going on that they didn't know if they were going to be able to pull everybody back together. And it sounds like they didn't, because they were still talking about a 4th season.
Season 3
during the 3rd season.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, about contract-wise?
So look into that.
Huh.
No, but yeah, legendary actress.
I mean, shit's still going at it.
Drew Barrymore.
You know, Firestarter was
so cute.
You know, a long time ago.
So amazing.
30
and absolutely talented. You know,
7 years
SAG
ago.
Award. Yeah, SAG Award winner. Golden Globe winner. So.
Yeah, still.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And she's friggin' great at it.
There's not many people who, you know, have been around.
Child actor that didn't go sour.
You think, what, like 35 years or something like that? They're still going strong. I mean, she's basically been doing this her entire life.
Oh yeah, basically came up into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially given her formative years. You know, the difficulties she had when she was young. Some of the stunts that she pulled. But before she was even the age of 16. You know, I get that, you know, this is what Hollywood was doing to young actors back in those days. I think, you know, not just Drew Barrymore, but, you know, individuals like Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, Macaulay Culkin, all were kind of victims of that. Yeah. You know, speaking of which, you know, like, Corey Feldman's new documentary about to come out here pretty soon, My Truth. About the kind of shit that went down with him and Corey Haim.
That was a good one.
Yeah, with Hollywood and everything like that. So, but she pushed through it. Drew pushed through it and has turned it into a incredibly successful career. I mean, you know, like I'm also sucker for Ever After. I really dug that. Yeah,
that was a good movie.
And I really liked Whip It because that was her directorial debut.
Briefly remember seeing something about it. Yeah.
Oh,
I haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah, Derby Girls is pretty much what it was.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember the trailer now.
With Ellen Page.
Yeah, I heard that was an underrated movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that was her first movie or her first director credit. And I think she won.
Oh, hell yeah. She's only 45 this year. You got plenty of time left.
But I think it was awards on the independent circuit. But really, really good stuff. So we wish her nothing. You know, obviously, I wish her nothing.
Yes, you are.
I know she's got big things, you know, coming down the pipe. So,
anyways, Drew Barrymore is about to get somebody in trouble. So,
absolutely.
Happy birthday, Drew Barrymore.
No, I'm married. Maybe we'll cut that out.
Now we only have 2 hosts on the show due to lawsuit reasons.
So I was editing the podcast last night and shing.
Eugene, while Alex goes on his YouTube binge and Jared's wife kills him.
Hosting, starring, introducing.
So anything I say, she hears.
Bloodbaths are gonna be interesting.
So Eugene will be hosting Week in Horror from now on by himself.
Just be me talking to myself the entire time. Starring, producing, sound guy.
Happy birthday.
You can do multiple voice work in that respect.
Yeah, you know, the audience won't be able to notice, hopefully.
But wow, yeah. Fantastic career for one Drew Barrymore. We wish her all the best. Happy birthday, Drew.
Happy birthday, Drew. And so, once again, I want to say thank you so much for listening. We're always looking for feedback. So if you have feedback, comments, questions, please feel free to email us at weekinhorror@gmail.com, right? You can listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google Podcast, and the list goes on. Thank you so much. And then also check out our Patreon, right? You go to patreon.com/weekinhorror, where you can help support this podcast and have us keep going and making awesome episodes for you to listen to, you know. And on top of that, you can get some exclusive content such as our bloodbaths, where we take 2 horror icons and we put them in a battle to the death, where you get to hear our expertise, right, and to see who would win. And on top of that, you can also check out our Week in Horror After Dark, where we have celebrities come in and we get to sit and chat with them. We talk about upcoming horror movies, the state of the horror genre, or even just some of the personal experiences in the past, right? It's a great segment. We already got 2 up, and we got many more coming lined up, right? And then go ahead, check us out on Facebook /Week in Horror for your dose of daily splatter, a little bit of trivia every single day from your favorite horror movies. And also check us out on Twitter, right? On the handle Week in Horror, where also you can get some daily splatter content. And so thank you so much for listening.
I'm JL.
I'm Eugene, signing off.
I don't know what
you're talking about. We will see you next week.
Bye.